Hello, hello, hello. Well, everybody, we are live back on air. Mr. Mordue, where in the world are you today? That doesn't look like a familiar background.
This is the inside of a motorhome.
Mm.
So we're in my wife and I decided to take a little trip. I think I mentioned it last week. I've got a niece getting married in Houston on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just doing the traditional fly out, get a hotel and hang out, we thought let's rent a motorhome and take a week. So
Nice.
we've been in this motorhome for about a week now. Not even close to wanting to kill each other yet.
Wow.
Um, at least I don't
It
think so. She
it,
might
it
be.
must be love.
Yes, yes, compact spaces. But it's been fun. It's been an interesting trip. Lots of driving.
Mm-hmm.
You meet a bunch of interesting people in an RV park.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bet. I bet. I bet. So, did you hire the RV and drive all the way there from your home, or did you just fly in and hire it there?
We did. There's a service here in the U.S. I don't know where else they might have. It's kind of like an Airbnb,
Mm-hmm.
where individuals who own, RVs and travel trailers and stuff like that can make them available through this site that I guess provides all the insurance and
Okay.
manages the funding and everything. So we saw one we liked and rented it at home, and then drove it. Made some stops along the way. We were going to go to New Orleans, but that was right when that Hurricane Barry
Ah.
was
Okay.
going through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we skipped New Orleans, but and right now we're in San Antonio, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
We're spending a couple days here. We're going to drop down to Austin, Texas tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and spend a couple days there, and then back to Houston for the wedding, and then heading back home.
Very nice. Very nice. Mike Hartlett.
It's interesting to drive. I mean, these things are like it's like a bus.
Oh, so,
It's
so you
literally
actually
like a
tour
city.
around in it? You don't just go to the one location. You actually go driving about.
So, well, we drive it to the
Mm-hmm.
location, but then from there we kind of take Uber to get around the city and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of more like a portable hotel room. But driving it here on the interstate and through town to get to the RV parks, it's literally like driving a city bus, and it's about the size of one.
Wow.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bet. I bet. As in, in England, I find the roads so narrow out in the countryside. I don't know if I'd want to travel around in one. But Mike Hartley here, who's on the line, has said that he loves motorhomes and he's planning on doing the UK race circuit and traveling around it via motorhome. So very nice.
Oh, I was thinking it was a motorhome race.
No, 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 no.
That would be a slow thing to watch, but it could be fun.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Jason's joined us. He likes the new overlays. Thank you, Jason.
Oh yeah.
I've done some
Oh
work
yeah.
this week and had somebody creatively come up with something that looks a bit better than just a black backdrop, and this is what they came up with. We're even surprised
Nice.
the
Yeah.
old MVP logos on there, so they must have done their research because I didn't provide any of that information. I provided of course, the Power Platform suite of logos. But yeah, so they were quite creative
There's so
and
much
put
going
it.
on.
Yeah,
You almost have to hunt to find us.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, they actually had the whole
We're the moving parts.
they had the whole background animated at one point, and I was like, oh no, that's too
You'll
much.
never
That's
find
too
us.
much. That's too much. So I suppose top of mind this week is, of course, Inspire. Right, a lot of new announcements coming out of Inspire.
Yeah, this is the first Inspire that I have missed in 6 or 7 years, I
Wow.
guess. And I kind of have mixed emotions about it. I, uh, I feel a little guilty for not being there, and I know there's some. I would have probably liked to have been there, but by the same token, last year in Vegas, it was sweltering hot,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, and Inspire's a huge event, and it's definitely not focused exclusively on what I'm focused
Yeah.
on. It's focused on all sorts of things, and we're just a small subset of that.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the MVP stuff with you and I, we wouldn't hear anything new at Inspire. What we would hear is them announcing things that we knew about, which is good. You and I talked before we got on here about a couple things we can now talk about because they've mentioned them
Announced
out
it.
at
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Inspire. So we'll see. I know they're in Vegas for a few years. I'd heard they signed a 5-year deal, so this is the second one. It's three more
Wow.
out there in Vegas, and this time of year, man, it's a hot one.
Yeah, I've seen some of
But
the photos coming through, and it reminds me from when I was in Vegas last. And I gotta say I don't miss it. It'd be the bit I'd miss is connecting with the various Microsoft folks around the product team, I suppose specifically. But anything more than that, you're right. the entertainment, the heat, all that kind of stuff. I'd do it in another city that wasn't as hot as what it is there. I think it'd be more palatable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that was it not that long ago they were also doing it in different parts of the globe, right? They had it in like Barcelona one year. Or, they moved it around
I, I,
in
I
Toronto, and
yeah. Okay, so I've only thought they'd only done it in the North Americas. I didn't think they'd done it somewhere else.
oh, maybe I'm mixing that up with something else
Yeah.
they did in
I think
Barcelona.
they used to do kind of a convergence or something equivalent in Barcelona,
Yeah, in
maybe.
Barcelona. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what.
Yeah.
Well, a couple things that they did talk about, and I keep looking out the window here to my left as motorhomes are driving by, distracting me. So sorry about that. They did talk about um, the elimination of plan. So for Dynamics 365,
Right.
there's been individual licenses, right? Sales, service, et cetera, all $95 a piece, retail price. Or you could buy the plan, which the plan was 115 US.
Yep.
So clearly, if you needed more than one application for a user, right? A user needed, say, sales and service. Well, it made more sense just to buy the plan, and they got everything. As it, as that kind of shook out, a couple things became apparent that that was an awful lot of application for 115 bucks. You were getting sales, service, field service, and project service automation, all of
Yep.
those, for $115. That was frankly just more value than was justified by the
Yep.
price. Also, when they looked across the users of the plan license, which they're able to do, pull up everybody that sells plan, which is frankly a lot of enterprise and a lot of EA licensing, they realized that the majority of them, and I mean, I saw some statistics on it, it's a significant percentage of those plan users are only using a single application. They're using sales or service or something. So they made the
Are you
decision.
saying nobody was really using multiple apps? So in other words, one individual in a company wasn't using or needing the licenses to the three different apps.
Yes, the statistic that I saw in one of our calls about this, because they were looking for some opinions on this before they launched it. Of course, I was all for the idea. Was that about, I think it was like close to 90% of enterprise plan users were using a single application. So that's 90% of those users that were paying, for $115 for the use of all apps and only using one app, which could have cost them $95.
Gotcha. Yep.
So you're looking at what, a $20 a month premium that 90% of those people were paying
Wow.
for stuff they weren't using. For the two app user, which is where makes sense or did make sense in a plan to jump to plan, that only brought it up to like another, I don't know, 7 or 8% of users that were using two apps. And the number of users that were using three apps was like a fraction. It just was hardly anybody out there. And then we're talking about at the user
Yeah.
level. Hardly anybody out there was using more than two applications, which seems, reasonable. I mean, it'd be kind of an odd role in an organization that I do sales and service and project service.
Yeah.
So for a pretty small fraction. So they made the decision that it looks like the plans, aren't making the most financial sense for the customers. Um, and so they decided to just eliminate it. The same thing on F&O. There were plans on
Okay.
F&O, so they've eliminated it. All the plan licensing bundles are all gone. And actually, for customers, that should be good news because it looks like by and large, almost all of the users are going to end up paying less for their licenses than they were when they were being sold plan.
Okay. So that's a reduction for most customers. That's a step in the right direction. But you mentioned before some mention of on the Power Platform as well, like the. Is there changes? Did you see a whisper or something about that in the keynote or something around those plans changing as well?
Yeah, there is some Power Apps licensing changes coming.
Mm-hmm.
You and I obviously know what those details are, but they did announce at Inspire that they're coming with a per app license model,
Right.
which is kind of it's interesting when you think about it, and because the Dynamics 365 plans, right, included multiple individual apps as part of that plan because there was an app, right, a
Mm-hmm.
sales
Mm-hmm.
app, a service app, an already built app. We jump over to Power Apps, there's no app, right? It's just a platform, and you build your app, or you buy an app from an
Yeah.
ISV, or and this is strictly the so this idea is that I'm a citizen developer or I'm working with an ISV at my company. We've got Power
Mm-hmm.
Apps, and we're going to use the Power App uh, super sales app that some ISV has built or something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a single app, and I'm going to license that to my different users, and I'm going to pay now for each user times each app they're using. So I've
Okay.
got all my users using. I'll use our Rapid Start again as an example
Yep. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I love using it as an
Yeah.
example. Like I got 10 users in my company. They're all using the Rapid Start app. I'm going to pay, you know, 10 times one app. And I don't think we can talk about what the pricing of that is yet because I think they're still experimenting with where that number lies. But it should be significantly less than what would now require, $40
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now for a model-driven app license of $40. Now, of course, for $40, you can use as many different apps as you want. But in reality, kind of like with a plan
Mm-hmm.
license on the enterprise stuff, most people are only using one app.
Mm-hmm.
So I think again, most people will probably save significant amount of money on the Power App side with their apps. It's interesting also. This introduces a couple of different things. Both these things do. Coming back to the enterprise plan, one of the reasons so many customers out there have the plan license is because it doesn't require the partner or the Microsoft seller to have to think. That they don't have to ask the customer, so what are your tell me about your different users and tell me what they do, and let's figure out how many of this app and how many of that app and maybe how many team members and how many. They don't have to do any of that. They just say, you know what, just buy the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the plan has become kind of the lazy salesperson's tool of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Is I'm just going to sell you the plan. I make the most money as a partner. I make the most money as a Microsoft.
Oop, it looks like it's our Skype connection's gone down here. Um, the RV hotspot might not be as solid as Steve was hoping. This is the joys of touring on the road. Anyhow, we'll come back to him as soon as he is back on our session and back in live, rather than the frozen face that we currently have. But listen, any of those people online at the moment, keen to get any kind of feedback from you. Have you got any questions that you want to chat to us about, or any topics that you want us to go out and find the answers on, whether it's engaging with product team or somebody out there that that you feel we might be able to get access to have a conversation like this, let us know. I'm just checking my other phone to see if Steve's coming back to us. Can't see anything just yet. Oh, he's totally gone. We'll just bring back up Skype and see if I can find out where he has disappeared to. Got it. Let me just bring him back in. Let's see if he dials my way. And this is RV totally lost power, perhaps, and because he doesn't look like he's just coming back in just yet, but I'm sure he'll dial in as soon as he's available. I'll give him a go. Let's see if he's back online. Give him a call now. Do you know when the PowerApps portal is going to be available? I don't know that actually. I know, you'd have to, Jason. I think you'd have to take a look. I'm just going to stop this dialing in my background. I think he's not online at the moment. Steve is unavailable. No, he's not available. So, Jason, yeah, in regards to the PowerApps portal, I'm not 100% sure when that is coming live. But as soon as it does or is available, I think the kind of updated timelines are listed in the release notes. So I suggest that that may be the place. But what I'll do is, oh, hang on, he's coming back in. What I will do is go and engage with the team and see if we can find out exactly when that will be coming live. But anyhow, his power's back on. He's back in his houseboat. You're blowing up on my screen though, so I just gotta. This is a little bug in the software, for example. For some reason, it just blows you away. Now, do you remember at what point you're up to, Steve? Telling us.
I think I was talking about how the both partners and Microsoft sellers have used the plan license as a lazy motion for selling. They don't have to think about what the customer's users actually need. I'm just going to sell you this plan because it includes everything, and I make the most money on it, and I don't have to think. So one of the things elimination of plan is going to do, in addition to saving customers some money, is it's going to require everybody, partners as well as Microsoft sellers, to have to actually think a little bit in that sales conversation. You can't just say, "Oh, here you go. Let's give everybody the sales license." Well, no, we got half of our users do service, and we field service. I mean, they're going to actually have to think about creating a license matrix for each customer, where they've gone down the list of every user in the organization that's going to be using business applications. You got a mute button for that, Mark.
Yeah, was
By the
I
way.
was muted then. I was muted to ear.
So they're going to have to look at all the users in the organization and figure out, this user does X, Y, and Z, so they're going to need this license, set up. It's going to be some work, uh,
Yeah.
but obviously, the most licenses that have been sold out there, I believe, have been plans, and probably in reality that should have been the minimum number. So that'll be interesting. The other thing, similar challenges on the per app pricing on Power Apps, right? Because if before that, and it was like a $40 all you could eat buffet for Power App, well, I'll build a Power App for this, I'll build a Power App for that, Power App for everything. I'll have like 50 different Power Apps floating around the organization, and I'll give everybody access to my Power App. Well, that won't be how you'll approach it going forward. So now you're looking at a per app per person cost. So it causes people to rethink how they may build Power Apps to where have the ability to do it, but I can make whatever they want. I'm going to take these 5 different Power Apps I built, and I'm going to rebuild that as a single Power App that does 5 different things, so that I can have my user for that one app now can do multiple things with that one app instead of having to have multiple apps. So a little bit of a tilting on both of those upside down from how things have been
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Interesting, interesting.
It's to give me the poor
Yeah,
connection
yeah. I
again.
see your connection's a bit dodged there on your side. But one of the things that, I had a podcast go live this week, and of course, it covered all things with Steve Guggenheimer around the ISV program. Mate, it's
Yep.
definitely not liking your picture. You now become a little minute person, so I'm just going to go full screen to me at this point. So, yeah, one thing that he was quite clear on, and I think a lot of ISVs are not clear on this, is that there's going to be no opt out of the ISV program if you want to get listed in AppSource. It's you're all in or you're not type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be something we're going to be repeating in probably every one of our live streams for the next several of them until that message gets through to ISVs. Because I'm still seeing ISVs that are thinking that they're somehow immune or that they can avoid or something. And I mean, I get it. I mean, you're bopping along as ISV, right? You're doing what you're doing. Your business is successful. Everything's happy, and it's unfathomable to think that Microsoft is now just going to reach in and say, "Hey, give me 10% of that." And I think there's still a lot of partners out there that are going, "No, no, that can't be what they're
Yeah.
doing." yeah, that can't possibly. No, they're not just going to reach in and say, "Hey, you need to give me 10% of that stream that I built of revenue." So they're looking for the clarification that of how that can't be what's happening, but that is what's happening.
Yeah.
Um, the free ride is definitely come to an end for for ISVs. Um, the big question, and you and I have talked about this also, particularly I think for new ISVs, awesome. I'm going to give you 10% of a revenue stream I haven't even created yet, and in exchange you're going to help me create it. Uh, awesome. I'm all for it. It's that existing ISVs that actually are, I guess, what you would consider successful. Um, there's plenty of existing ISVs that haven't really hit the success um, um, step yet that probably are fine with this also. Great. I'll start paying 10% of my barely existent revenue stream to have you help me grow it. But it's those ISVs that have a healthy revenue stream and have had one for a long time
Yeah.
that are going to be the ones with some angst here. And it's not, oh, from now on, for any new customers you generate after today, you need to pay the 10 or 20% rev share. It's any revenue you generate starting today. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for ISVs that may have signed a long-term contract with somebody. Maybe I signed, I cut a deal and offer my solution to some customer for 3 years or 4 years at some price, and now suddenly 10% of that revenue just vaporized. That could have been all the margin I had in it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Like he's very much on a, this is the week that everything is going to come out, all the announcements, and it looks like around, I don't know, mid-October is drop dead day for if your apps haven't been recertified or reclassified or moved across to the new program, they're pretty much out. So it's those long-term customers, the ones like your Click Dimensions that have been around for a long time. It's going to be interesting how they fare in this new world. Like, you know, I was reading the licensing agreement earlier today. Can you believe it? Probably about the first one I've read, and it's quite clear. You can't create an app that's kind of like a hook. And in other words, like you can't create an app that you put up in the marketplace for free and then
Right.
sell your services direct. As a
No
not.
Trojan horses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No Trojan horses. And it was interesting because I was talking with a partner the other day, and if you have a look at iTunes App Store, one of the things that Microsoft do, they provide, Word, Excel, PowerPoint as iOS apps, right? And they're free.
Yep.
But of course, you can't use all the functionality on those unless you have a paid subscription for Office 365. So is Microsoft paying, behind the scenes Apple? I expect so, for the luxury of, being in their app store. But I don't think that unless you're the size of an Apple or an Adobe or SAP or something like that, I don't think small partners are going to be able to put that Trojan horse app in there, put it up there for free with, oh, by the way, but once you click into here, we'll invoice you from our server. You won't go through Microsoft's payment servers or be invoiced from Microsoft for those fees because, hey, theoretically, Microsoft doesn't see them.
Yeah, I mean, like that's not such an obvious thing that hasn't already been tried, figured out, and sorted out by every app marketplace, Apple,
Yeah,
Salesforce, all of them already. I think that's probably the knee-jerk reaction of someone desperate to try and not pay is, oh, well, I'll just do this or I'll just do that.
yeah.
But I don't think there's certainly nothing clever about that that hasn't been thought of.
Mm,
And like you mentioned, Microsoft having those apps in Apple. I'm sure Apple probably has a very similar agreement
yeah,
or language in their agreement. Also, I'm sure that's where Microsoft got a lot of the language was from the other marketplace agreements, and
yeah, yeah.
Trojan horse. Well, I mean, the whole idea there is you're cheating. I mean, you may not agree with what's being done, but your option isn't to cheat; it's to participate or not.
Yeah.
Do something else if you want to with your time. But I'm sure there will be, just like with GDPR, just like with HIPAA over here, these big things that come into play. There will be some examples made.
Yeah.
There probably need to be. There'll be some partner out there, some ISV that will be blatant about it. If I'm Microsoft, I'm gonna take that partner and kick them out of the program. I'm gonna disconnect their applications from the platform and do something.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have the rights to do it.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing I can do, obviously, is pull them out of App Source.
Yeah, well, one of the things the license agreement even says quite clearly, if you sign the agreement with them, you give Microsoft the rights to audit your data for 3 years after signing that agreement. So as long as the agreement's in place plus 3 years, they have the right,
Yep.
as an according a contractual right that you agree to go into the program to actually assess your data and to see if it's true or not.
Yeah, I don't know that. Again, that'll probably be. I mean, the IRS, Internal Revenue Service over here, can audit people at
Exactly.
will, but the number of people audited is pretty small, and the reason you get audited is because you're, doing some things that seem a little sketchy.
Yep.
So I'm sure that's. I don't think Microsoft's going to be doing an audit of every
Not at
ISV.
all.
It'll be the sketchy things. But if I'm signing an agreement that says, okay, in order for me to play in your sandbox, I'm going to give you 10% of the revenue I generate from playing in your
Mm-hmm.
sandbox. Um, I can see where Microsoft's going to need the right to audit,
Yeah.
to make sure that I'm giving them the 10% of the money I'm making in their
Yeah,
sandbox.
exactly. What's your thoughts on, one of the things that came out around the whole internal user rights, which, was on and now it's off, Gabriella in the keynote address said, no, no, we're not going to enforce that anymore. So that big change came about. But one of the interesting side conversations that came out of all this is the number of partners. Now, I think you mentioned a number of 600,000 partners around the world.
That's a number that I had been given one time before by Microsoft. It was actually maybe a couple of year old number, and it was like MPN, right? MPN all
Right,
up,
right.
which isn't Dynamics Office. I mean, that's everybody,
Yep.
right? That's
Microsoft
every
Partner Network.
OEM,
Yeah.
every company that builds a Microsoft mouse,
Mm-hmm,
every
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
device, every
All the
everything.
OEMs.
There's
Yep.
a
Yep.
ton. Yeah, everybody out there. So it's a big network that Microsoft partners with. Everybody that Microsoft engaged with external to Microsoft
That
in that
that's
network.
not a customer.
Yeah, so that's big. Frankly a lot of customers too, right? Through Action Pack. So
So because there's no
I think
there's
that
because there's no restriction to get to become a partner, right? You just go out, fill out the form. You don't have to pay any money or anything. And of course, a lot of companies have got savvy to this, and they go up and buy the action pack, right? Which is what, $600-700. I can't remember what it is, and they get a
it's
whole
like $500 a year
yeah, a
US.
whole
Yep.
bunch of licenses then for free. And so I assume, I think, as you rightly pointed out, take Pareto's principle. 20% will be doing something for Microsoft, or it will be a partnership. In other words, of mutually beneficial type relationship, and that tells me that 80% maybe not mutually beneficial. Maybe the partner's getting more value than Microsoft is out of that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a couple of different ways that that's happening, right? There's small businesses that have nothing to do with Microsoft or technology or anything.
Yeah,
A plumbing company who goes and realizes he can buy an action pack for $500 and get used to a bunch of software that's worth significantly more than the
yeah,
$500. And that's part of that 80% that's doing nothing. I think there's, certainly people that are Salesforce partners, right?
mm-hmm.
And their whole business is doing Salesforce deployments. Oh, let's go get this action pack for Office 365 functionality. They're not doing Microsoft any
Yeah,
good. Uh, and there's partners that are like, hey, let's go become a Microsoft partner and get these benefits from Action Pack, and then proceed to really just not be successful with Microsoft. So they're not doing anything. So
yeah.
you got a whole bunch of people out there that aren't doing anything for Microsoft at all, other than paying some minimal amount of money for too much software.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That does
I,
make sense.
I did think it was interesting. I mean, as I blogged and tweeted and even talked to Mary Jo Foley about, I didn't think they were going to back off.
Yeah,
I think I said I don't know why they would. and I don't know why they did.
It was
I mean,
the heat from Ignite, without a
yeah,
doubt, right? They would
yeah.
have had what 20,000 odd. I think what they got over 20,000 people there. I saw a number. I think you know those fans not being fans at that time when it's a big celebration. It's around
It would have put a
inspiration.
damper on it.
Put a damper on it. And so
Yeah,
because she
yeah,
stands on stage and the first thing that she says pretty much is internal user rights. No, we heard you. We listened. Kumbaya. We love you.
yep,
You
yep,
know.
yep. Well, and I do think that that Microsoft, having worked for Salesforce and some other platforms in the past, Microsoft is certainly far and away the most partner
Yeah.
friendly. I think I think partner friendliness, has a limit, and when we had a reseller channel before with our Rapid Start, um, we had 300 partners signed up to resell our ISV
Mm-hmm.
solution, and only a small fraction of them
Yeah.
did. I'm sorry, I just can't bring myself as a business person to care that much about the ones that aren't doing anything for
Yeah.
me. I mean, I'm not a charity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a for-profit business, and so is Microsoft. So,
So so
and it was interesting.
so if you take that scenario, imagine you had those 300 partners on and you said, "Oh, by the way, as a symbol of good gesture, we're going to give you a license each to run. In fact, we're going to provide you the tenant to run that license. We'll provide the infrastructure, the compute, the data center, all that." And
Yeah.
do you think that you might have had 300 partners that says, "Yep, yep, we're keen to do it. Don't sell anything, but thank you very much for your license. We'll use that to run our business."
Oh, no doubt.
Right?
Sure. I mean, we did offer. I think we offered it at a discount,
Yep.
and we offered it on their infrastructure.
Yeah,
So it was
smart
really
move.
just our
Smart move.
IP that we offered, so that it wasn't. I think one of the challenges, and it was interesting because Microsoft's first reaction to the uproar wasn't okay, fine, no, never mind, we'll cancel it. Their first reaction was, wait a minute, this is justified
Yeah.
because we got partners out there, we got folks out there that are I don't they didn't use my term that they're not making any money for us, but instead they said, these are services now that have a
Yeah.
cost, and we got because there's a cost to us and not a cost to partners. There's an issue here. Partners, since they're not paying anything for these services, are basically leaving the faucet on. They don't have any motivation
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
reason to turn it off. So they're just they've just got all their faucets wide open, running water out in the street
Yeah.
at our expense. I think that was they talked about hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
dollars a
Yeah.
year
Yeah. Yeah.
behind this thing, and I can definitely sense. I can imagine the frustration on their part to seeing all these open faucets just running.
Yep.
And the minute those people pay for those services, suddenly these faucets are running when they need to and off when they don't.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that's the downside of giving away something for free, right? Is uh, is just the running faucets. So that was their first reaction, was to justify the move.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, once you got that screaming horde, right? There's no listening to
Yeah. Yeah.
any any reason or anything. All they're worried about is their faucets getting turned
Yeah.
off.
Frank says in the chat there that why sell if Microsoft makes it impossible to show revenue recognition? So, and that's a comment that I've heard quite a few times is the lack of influenced revenue or that ability to show how an individual is affecting revenue. If you're not an OCP and not, if you're like listed as, the partner
The
of,
selling partner.
yeah, you still might be massively influencing it, but you're not the selling partner.
Yeah, they are getting rid of DPOR, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's moving to this claims-based
Yeah.
system, which I think is going to help with
How,
that,
how,
because DPOR was such
how
a.
do you see the claims-based system working? What's your understanding of it?
So we're using it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like everything, they're moving it all to Partner Center, right? And we can circle back in a few minutes to the ISV stuff also moving to Partner Center, but the all of that claims everything with Microsoft. They're trying to get everything moved into Partner Center. That's going to be the single home base for
Yep.
everything,
Yep. Exactly.
and if you're part of, I don't know if it's out of pilot yet or if it's a preview or where it is now, but if you don't see it soon, you will see this incentives tab pop up in Partner Center.
Hmm.
You have to be signed up for the programs that you're entitled to incentives for. If you're not, you're not going to see
So
anything.
what you mean, like a competency?
Not so much a competency, but for example, you need to be signed up as a with the advisor, the MOSPA agreement, and the normal
Yep,
various
yep, yep,
agreements that
yep,
you would
yep, yep,
expect to
yep,
sign.
yep.
Uh, and then they have these different incentive programs that they have that you need to sign up for as they pop up, and those things will show up. And if you're in the space, you know which ones those are, and you probably already signed up for them. And then what'll happen is you go into to there, and I was just recently looking at, because in our situation where we sell licenses direct as a CSP, that's pretty clear cut. We're obviously getting credit for every one of those sales, no problem. We sold the
Yep.
license. Where Microsoft, because a lot of the deals we're getting involved with, Microsoft has actually sold the license on an EA, and that's where it gets challenging. Is
Yeah,
I'm the
exactly.
IS, I'm either the ISV or I'm the SI that enabled this license to be sold by the Microsoft seller on an EA, so I should be getting credit. And so in that area, I can go in and I can submit a claim.
Hmm.
And right now, I can submit two types of claims. I can submit either a claim for sales credit, meaning I want to be paid
Hmm.
incentives on the sale of those licenses, and that's on both the sale and the ongoing usage.
Hmm.
Or I could submit a claim as an ISV that, hey, my ISV solution is on this EA, and I want credit. I don't get incentive, but I will get seat count and revenue recognition. And when you do that, um, the customer, you don't have to ask the customer. You don't have to go to the customer, beg the customer to do anything. Microsoft will you're required to provide some sort of POE, right, proof of
Mm-mm-mm.
execution, your statement of work or something, and then Microsoft will send the customer an email saying, "Hey, Steve said he was involved in the sale of your licenses, and unless you say he's full of crap, we're gonna mark him down as a partner for credit."
Yeah, yeah.
And then so it's kind of they've kind of reversed it. Instead of having to go to the customer and beg them, "Hey, would you please go here, click this, sign this, and all that sort of stuff," which customers just didn't really care about.
Mm-mm. Mm.
They flipped it around now where we can do that. And so we've made claims on both ISV and on sales credit and had them both go through that system.
Okay.
So that's going to help, I think, a lot with that revenue recognition.
We've got a comment here from, I hope I pronounce this right, Mayak. He said, but some of those running faucets are the only source of fueling the ocean of innovation that makes Dynamics so popular and in the leader quadrant. I love that play on words there. I'll continue. It's not the MS product itself, but the innovation that partners bring into the ecosystem that runs the show. And it should not hurt to support them. I think there may be some maybe some that get 200% done, and then those that get 0% done. Microsoft, though, won't be going to the negative with these type of investments. Yeah, we know they're $1 trillion business; they're at the top of their game. But I suppose, like any prudent company, they're always looking at are they running as efficiently as possible. But of course, money is only one form of measurement. I think you raised some valid points there around the innovation that comes out of it. And it's really investing in innovation that ultimately, whatever comes out of that innovation gets sold on their platform and consumes licenses.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Microsoft was what their stock was flatlined for what decades, right? Just sat there, didn't wasn't doing anything. There was no expectation by the investing public or the stock market from Microsoft to do anything, right? They just sit there and steady Eddie, just float along.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here comes cloud, here comes Satya, and it blows up from, just this mundane stock in a portfolio to the most valuable company in the world, breaking all kinds of records of growth and everything else. And with that comes a new expectation. The investor community, Wall Street, that they're looking at Microsoft now completely differently than they ever looked at them
Yeah.
before. And that business is all about what have you done for me lately, right? And hey, your business grew 100% last year. How's it going to grow 100% next
Yeah.
year? Or and in the year, you know, once you kind of, it's like you once you light that fuse, you know, you can't unlight it.
Yeah.
So there's a new pressure, I think, for Microsoft that they have not had before, where there's a pressure to continue to grow and continue to show the advancement. Uh, at some point, you know, they're going to get to diminishing returns, right?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
Apple's got there, right?
yeah, and I've talked to some folks internally here also about things like even Azure. I mean, at some point, I mean, right now you've got Amazon customers to steal, you got on-premise customers to move,
Yep.
and while it's a ways out there, at some point that's going to equalize,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
the people that are going to go to hosted infrastructure have gone, and you've taken and swapped some customers with Amazon to the point where that, and then where's the growth after
Yeah.
that? You know, once everybody's kind of there, where's the growth after that?
Yeah.
Same thing with Office 365. You know, once everybody who's got it and is going to get it has it, then how does that growth
Yeah, but
continue?
but I think things change, right? As in, like they thought they had saturated the market with Office. Then Office 365 came
Oh
out
yeah,
and they innovated and they take it. It's like it's very interesting in my study of AI in recent times is that this whole concept that we're going to lose all these jobs. And it's kind of like, well, we're not going to, it's not so much that there's going to be less jobs. The jobs are just going to be different jobs because the technology will make those jobs obsolete, but the technology will open up this whole new sphere of technology. So I think that, we're only starting to scratch the surface in things like blockchain and AI. They've got a
yeah,
whole journey to run. Yes, they will be on the infrastructure of Azure. And so, people keep manufacturing hardware, right? So even though theoretically everyone should have all the hardware they need. So I'm wondering if that new services, new software, new ways of doing things, you saw my blog post the other day about how I think
yep,
Dynamics 365 for sales has had no innovation,
no,
tongue in cheek, 20 odd years. And the thing is that I think sales is gonna, I don't know, are they gonna come back to and have a renaissance type thing? Because I just feel like the way the world runs sales wise now is way different than the past. The global financial crisis totally changed, if you like, the way sales was done. When all of a sudden there's just no money, nobody's buying anything. But
yeah,
people still got to sell, right? And I don't know. I think there's so much room for innovation, so many new solutions that could come up, and therefore, if you like, the pie keeps growing rather than we get to the limits of the pie or a new pie. Basically, that pie is exhausted, and there's a whole new one over here. We're starting to exhaust fossil fuels, and of course, we've seen all this massive development in all these new renewable energy type technologies. I just think it pivots, right? We still continue to grow as a culture or as a people.
yeah. I mean, I think it's the difference for Microsoft is they went from having no expectations to having high
Yeah.
expectations, and so you got your growth engines, right? But you got to continuously be creating the next growth engine because every growth engine runs out of steam and,
Yeah.
and hits a plateau, and that's where AI and mixed reality and some of these other things that you've been talking about a lot. These are the next growth engines, right? As these other ones, they don't die; they just kind of plateau. You got to have those next growth engines. Obviously, Power Platform is a big bet on it from a business app side on the next growth engine
Yeah.
for what we're doing over here. And it was an excellent post you wrote the other day on that on the sales and got to agree with every point. We're having trouble finding our agree to
I know,
disagree
right?
topic.
As in,
But
what did you
I got
did
to
you,
agree with you on that
did you
one.
look at my post about the LinkedIn integration?
I have not seen that one
Okay,
yet.
so I put one. So I basically post 2 days apart. My blog is kind of like my blogging rhythm, and so I did that kind of confronting post. 2 days later, I released the what was it called? Something like Dynamics 365 for sales and LinkedIn. After
Yep.
3 years, is this it? And
Yeah.
because
Yeah. 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 I saw the title
yeah,
of it.
I
Yep.
wrote a blog post
I agree.
back in the day, as in this is back when I was in magnetism, I think, or might have just moved to Australia, can't remember which, where I did the whole step by step on how to configure LinkedIn to work. And I try to find that archive post, couldn't find it, could be that I don't own those assets anymore. And one of the things was it's no different than what we have now, and they own the company though now. But it's really just
Yep.
the same type of experience. And I was interested yesterday. I think I saw it might have been Monday at Ignite them going, all these new features are coming, and I'm just like, come on, like really move the dial on these things. There's so much innovation that could happen, but I don't know if anybody's interested or they're just milking the big fat cow. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're spinning a lot of plates, and I think that sometimes a different plate gets more focus than others. Another one just is allowed to. You just spin there by yourself. We'll come back to
Yeah.
you. But we got these new ones we're trying to get spun up, and it's interesting. I did a podcast with Mohammed recently, and I think I launched that last week, and he was talking about the workload that he has ahead of him,
Hmm.
and everything and this is now ERP stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The F&O. He's got Business Central, but Business Central was a juggernaut enough of itself that he's got Mike Ehrenberg helping him kind of shepherd that,
Hmm.
because in a way, even though it falls under Muhammad said, I stick my head out and I look to the right and I look to the left. There is so much
Yeah.
stuff that we've got on the horizon. And I think it's just a matter of them you know, picking things,
Yeah,
right? I
that's
mean,
gonna big
sales.
return. Which is gonna pay him the most, I suppose.
Yeah, but it is interesting because you think Dynamics 365 for sales, that's an app they built, right? It's been sitting out there doing pretty much what it's doing.
Yep.
Not a lot of innovation happening around that. You think about LinkedIn, though, to your point, I mean, they paid what, $26 billion
Hmm.
dollars for LinkedIn.
Hmm.
For $26 billion, you would think they would be much more motivated to get more out of that investment
Listen,
than, say,
yeah,
sales if
yeah.
they just built
I
internally.
think they are, and Dynamics is just a small part of the pie that they're after because I know they've done some great integration with Office 365,
Yep.
and I bet you the stuff that we don't see in the public is all the back office agreements with all the different suppliers or companies that want access around the world, right? That'll never hit the public domain. It'll all be squirreled away tightly. It doesn't seem that they're losing any money on that,
That
right?
sounds a little conspiratorial there.
Doesn't sound like they're losing any money. So what I'm saying is that it's probably like you say, the plate's spinning. It's not worth investing in that. It's not. It's not as big as other things that they want to invest in.
When they first bought LinkedIn, right, and all the noise from Salesforce and everything trying to block the
Yeah,
sale and all that stuff, and partners, first reaction was, "Oh man, we're going to be able to just mine LinkedIn
yeah,
from Dynamics," and then the realization that, well, no, that would kind of kill LinkedIn if we allowed that to happen. So then we all kind of sat back with our arms crossed and thought, "Oh, okay, well, then what can you do?"
yeah,
And to your point, we're looking at what they did and we're thinking, well, it seems like I was able to do that 10 years ago.
yeah,
Um, what was the point of buying it other than maybe keeping Salesforce from having it?
yeah.
It doesn't seem like it has paid any big, huge
Mm-mm.
dividends to Microsoft other than defensive, and certainly not to the customers or partners in a huge way.
Yeah, I've
You
not
know,
looked at the report to market because they disclose all this, and
yeah,
I've never seen any media agency go, oh, look at that, they're losing money. There's another Nokia happening, right?
yeah,
Everything seems
right,
to be
right.
tripping along. They're obviously making money on it. One of the things that you had on your podcast that I did find interesting with Muhammad was you finally seems to be that you understand the potential around mixed reality. This is something that I've had you on about. I said I can see a future
Yeah, yeah,
there, and then you're talking to him and saying, you know what? It's I'm starting to see, with was it Chevron,
yep,
and I wrote a bit about it. The engineer that comes and taps the hammer on the big engine of the ship, and he invoices him $10,000 for using his hammer, and
yeah,
they're like,
right,
why is that? Well, you're what you're paying for is all this expertise. And really, I feel what
yep,
mixed reality does is provides the ability to make that expertise available anywhere in the world for the price of my first computer that I purchased. In fact, I could have bought two of them for the price of my first computer. And see, that seems pretty cheap, other than, putting an engineer on business class tickets, flying them halfway around the world, away from friends and family, all that kind of fatigue. You just remove all that by putting a headset on and saying, let's bring your expertise to some other point on the globe. I think it's an amazing technology that's got a long way. I just wish I could get my hands on a set and start using it.
Yeah. You know what I think what I needed was a good example. Uh, and up until Chevron exam, which was clear cut, and uh,
I wasn't
you
there. I
I don't
wasn't
know if
there.
you were there for that one, but they had the guy from Chevron who runs all of these oil rigs, who's responsible, and these are
Yeah, yeah.
big dollar deals, right? And they're out in the middle of the freaking ocean. They're remote, and just the ability to have a problem on one of those rigs, potentially serious, potentially who knows what kind of problems. There's all kinds of different things that can happen on a rig. You can't staff a rig with
Yep,
1,000
yep,
experts sitting there. It's a minimal crew.
yep.
Minimal crews are on these rigs, but their ability to have a problem and have literally a monkey
Yep.
put on a headset, and have someone back at their headquarters who's an absolute expert in all things oil rigs, walk this guy through exactly what to do. That was when a light bulb went off for me. Prior to that,
Yeah.
I think we saw
Phoenix.
at one of the, yeah, Phoenix, we saw the guy come out and change a light bulb in a Polaris, and I thought that's just, it
Yeah.
almost felt silly to me, like the idea that you would drop $2,000 on a headset for some worker to get
Yeah.
walked through sticking a light bulb.
Yeah.
So that was what I needed. But the point I was making with Muhammad, and it was interesting, as he had kind of agreed when that they were also kind of scratching their head of, we got this awesome technology, we need some good use cases. Um, but what the point I was trying to make with him was that today, because of the cost of the device, you need a pretty powerful use case to justify the expense at scale. Because he referenced manufacturing plant full of workers. Well, you're not going to go buy 1,000 Hololens, stick them on every worker's head in a manufacturing plant. I'd never do that. But over time, when the cost of those things comes down, which technology costs always come, more people use it, the lower the cost, right? When you get to the point where a HoloLens is what, $150, which why wouldn't
Yep.
it eventually get there, right? It opens up now suddenly use cases that didn't make any economic sense. Now suddenly it makes sense to
Yeah.
change a light bulb in a Polaris. When it's $150 and everybody's got one in their work truck, uh, now suddenly it makes sense
Yeah.
for that scenario. So I think that the MR is really just at the beginning. Right now we're at those. You got to have a high value use case to make sense, but over the next few years, we're going to see that just explode across low value use cases as that
Yeah.
cost comes
Well,
down.
we're just about up time wise. Coming up close to the top of the hour. We've had less technical issues than we have in the past. We lost you for a bit. Hopefully, we'll. Are you back? Are
And that
you
was my
are you
punt
back
went
home
out,
next week?
but I am. I'll be back. I'll be back home for our next
Okay.
Wednesday's call, and we're going to work on this week. Kind of between Inspire and the travel and stuff. It's just kind of you and I talking about some stuff. Next week we'll be trying to bring back our
Yep.
Ask an Expert. We just didn't have time to put that together for this episode, and we'll see if we can come up with
Yeah.
something we can
Maybe.
disagree on.
Maybe. I tell you what's been interesting for me today is the last day that I am running my. Well, it's a conclusion of my 90-day mentoring challenge where I've taken 60 odd people join me. Over the last 90 days to go through and be mentored under the 90-day mentoring challenge that I put out there. And it's I did it first last year, had 30 odd people. This year 60 odd, and northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, I do it 2 time zones, and it's been just incredible. And that one of the things I did differently this time is that when people give feedback, do an assignment, anything like that, I get them to just pick up their phone
Mm-hmm.
and do a video, or turn their webcam on and do a video. Well, it's just created
Yep.
such massive insights and conversations, and you just feel so much personally more engaged with people, even though they can be anywhere around the globe. And
Sure.
yeah, it's almost sad, if you like, to finish up at this point, but I plan to do it again in in 2020. I'll aim to do it. A
Right,
new
a new
season. I
season.
mean, that'll be two
Yeah.
years on the trot. It's definitely been it's been a great experience, and really seeing people starting to apply the mentoring, whether it be around developing their personal brand or understanding how to be an effective communicator and or how to be an effective consultant. A lot of people don't understand the whole ecosystem of Microsoft, and I go into that in detail in business apps. So it's been a great experience. Another little development I thought I'd share with you is that we've got coming up in Orlando. You and me are going to run a pub quiz. And we've talked about this pub
Yeah,
quiz a few
yeah.
times now. Well, I was talking to somebody else about it, and they said, let's build a power app for the pub quiz. So we should have set up
All
that
right.
a power app as the quiz masters will run everything, and then each individual in the group or each team will be able to have probably two things. Will a power app for each person to easily access and submit their questions, etc. Or sorry, submit their answers. But we're also probably going to introduce flick
Mm-hmm.
buttons for kind of like who can hit the button the quickest and present their answer. Yeah, we're gonna allow a little bit of
Okay. All
a
right. A
sledging and stuff to
buzzer,
go
right?
on, and so it's quite interesting how these chaps have come up with some innovative ideas of taking the traditional pub quiz, using the tech that we have, and taking it to the next level. So it should be fun.
It should be. I'd say that also on back on your mentoring. I think it's pretty obvious, at least to me, what your mentors are getting out of being mentored by you. But what are some of the things you have kind of come away with from those folks that you have mentored? That some observations that you've made
So
from
yeah,
the other side.
the big
As
one I
someone
would
who's
say would
doing
be
the mentoring.
confusion or not clear understanding about where everything sits in the ecosystem. Most people find themselves in a career in this space by accident, right? It wasn't intentional, it wasn't on
Yeah.
purpose. They might have been in IT and they ended up being the system admin for Dynamics, and then that grew from there.
Right.
Others have, just they've come in as grads. Others have kind of fallen into it. It became a software that their company used. They fell in love with it. So many people have all these kind of disparate ways of coming in, and they land in the place that there was a need. It wasn't necessarily a career decision. There was a need,
Yep.
and they just was like, well, I can do it, right? Put their hand up, did it, and now they're going, well, hang on a
Yeah.
second. I've
Right.
been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years. Is
Maybe there's a
I'm in
career.
a career, but should I then be much more strategic about where I'm going? What's the bit that appeals to me? So that's
Yeah.
been interesting to me. The other thing is just the hunger of people has blown me away. Just how keen and that people are to take the ideas and apply them. How there's a massive sense of global community, if you like. Just if you like, the lightning rod is this technology we work with, but it's kind of like, we've got people on from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, many from across Europe and the Americas. And it's just intriguing how this one technology kind of brings everybody together. So I have enjoyed
Yeah.
that. I have enjoyed that.
Yeah. It seems like you have, and everybody that I've talked to about the program has said it's an awesome program. So thanks on behalf
Thank
of
you.
everyone else for you doing that, because I know that's a that's a significant
Takes a lot of
undertaking, one
time.
that
Takes a lot of time.
I wouldn't touch
Yeah,
with a
yeah,
10
yeah,
foot
yeah.
pole. Yeah, yep, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole myself. But
Alrighty.
so the other thing we'll be doing, of course, at the upcoming event, we'll just keep along with the pub quizzes. We'll be doing
Yeah,
our live stream again, right? Live from the event. We'll be a little more organized than we were at the last one, because
much
that
more
was
organized.
our very first attempt. Yeah, I think our actual first second of live streaming was at
That's
that
it.
event, sitting on a sofa talking to some talking. So that was we're getting better. Certainly our graphics are a little better here. Hopefully the audio is better. I re-listened to the last stream that we did, and I was all choppy. Hopefully I'm not all choppy this time, even
Yeah,
though I'm on a
apart from that little
terrible
connection
connection.
dropout, I think it's been pretty solid. Thanks to everybody in the chat there. It's feel free to, if you're watching this after the fact, still put notes or ask any questions in the chat. We'll get those. We'll answer them on air next time. It's such a pleasure to have those who have stuck with us through this. But otherwise, we will see you same time next week back here. Bye bye.
Sounds